Today with me here is Dr. Saeid Golkar, former senior fellow at the Tony Blair Institute for Global Change, an expert on Iran, an expert on Iran's nuclear program. And we're going to be basically conducting a Q&A, which is going to be focusing primarily on the Iranian leadership and the Iranian side of things, kind of trying to understand what is going on there. So Saeed, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you very much for having me. It's a pleasure to be with you.
So first question is, when you're seeing what is going on in Iran right now, what is it in your perspective that's going on in the Iranian leadership head right now? What is it that they're kind of thinking about what they would need to do or would like to do, considering the situation that they're at right now?
To answer your question, Robert, I think we have to first to think about when we say Iranian leadership, who we are talking about. You know, the Islamic Republic right now is a theocratic regime. We know that has two completely parallel political structure: a state elected body or Republican institution like parliament, president, and judiciary, and theocratic institution like the supreme leader and the organization under his control. We have IRGC also, that's military and security forces. I put it as a theocratic institution, unlike the Iranian army, conventional army, that I put it as a Republican institution, because Artesh is designed and responsible for saving the Iranian territorial integrity. The IRGC is resigned and tasked for keeping the regime safe. So for these two parallel institutions, the Republican institution does not have too much power, does not have too much, influences in shaping, in making, and shaping the policy, major policy, security, military, foreign policies. We have to focus on theocratic institutions like the supreme leader and the IRGC. If you think about that, these two right now are important. And when we talk about the IRGC, I'm not just talking about the active commandership. The IRGC has a lot of personnel or commander who have retired, quote unquote, from the guard, but at the same time, they are working with the state bureaucracy, like General Qalibov, for example, or General Shamkhani, or Ali Akbar Ahmadian as the head of Supreme National Security Council. So we are talking about the supreme leader and his office, his son, his bait, his office, and the IRGC in a big picture. Thinking about what is happening right now and what they have to do, the survival of the regime is the first and most important priority. Nothing is more than important for them to just keep the regime safe, intact, first and foremost. And for achieving this goal, any tools is accepted, even negotiation with the other countries. And I'm sure in the long term, if they see that the survival of regime is under the threat, they are going to negotiate it with President Trump, even directly. But for now, they think they can actually manage this conflict for about 13 days, 1 month, 2 months, and trying to exhaust Israel. Trying to contain the United States, stop the United States from entering the conflict, and trying to exhaust Israeli population, Israeli citizen, and they put the pressure on the Netanyahu government to stop attacking Iran. That's the first most important priority for the regime. And then they will think about what they have done wrong, what they have to do in the next stage. To follow up.
How concerned are they that the United States will enter into this conflict and take an active part in it?
They are very concerned. Fighting with Israel for them, there has two different characteristics. First, they believe Israel is not able to completely destroy the regime. In terms of the technical abilities and in terms of the consistent to attack Iran in the long term. The second, presenting Israel as an enemy of the Iran for the Iranian people is much easier to presenting the United States. There are We know that for the 46 years of the anti-Semitism, Zionism, they created a huge propaganda that this is, cancerous state, illegitimate state are attacking us. So for these two reasons, that President Trump, if enter the conflict and start, fighting Iran, I think they believe that at that case they will lose everything. So they try everything. They are trying to send a message to the Trump. They try to threaten that, if you attack us, we are going to attack not only the American military bases, but their regional countries like UAE, for example, or the Saudi. We are going to disrupt the oil production and transportation, and the oil price will jump up. Both trying to show the stick to the Trump that this is not your conflict, don't come to the conflict, and threatening the Trump and the American, and using the pressure inside of the American society, and European, by mobilizing Iranian and pro-Palestinian population to come to the street and start, to protest that hands off on Iran. So all of this, an online initiative that the president and most importantly Foreign Minister Araqchi are showing is part of this operation to prevent United States to join the Israel in this conflict.
Would you describe the mode in Iran right now as what we call a rally around the flag, where even though those who disagree, the doves versus hawks, so to speak, when it comes to this topic of the nuclear, they may disagree, but they say, you know what, at this time, we need to rally around the flag and let later to deal with this? Or would you say that there's actual, I would say, collapse? Maybe collapse is not the right word, but actual fractions that we see within the regime, that the regime feels that there is a pressure from within that they need to terminate this by agreeing to the terms of not having the enriched uranium in Iran.
Two questions you present. The first one is Iranian people's sentiment about what is happening. The first night that the attack was done, and 22 military high-rank military commanders have been taken out, and the IRGC bases have been targeted, it was a very positive view among of the Iranian. You have to think about Iranian population like any other population. We have a small pro-regime people, about 10% of the population who are supporting the regime strongly, coming to the street, protesting. You have about 10% of the Iranian opposition, active opposition, and you have about 80% of the population that are not very political people. They won't have to normal life, and their view will shift based on what is happening on Iran. These are the people who sometimes, shifting toward, the opposition, sometimes shifting toward the regime if they feel threatened. What I can tell you right now, after the Israel attacked the oil refinery in north of Tehran, oil resources, there was some part of the shift of the population that they see this is not attack only on the military, it's on the civilian infrastructure also. From the third day, again, Israel shifted to the military and ballistic and nuclear facilities and killing. Again, there is a shift that this is not our war. The Iranian people, generally speaking, they think this is not the Iran-Israel war. This is the Islamic Republic-Israel war. That's the definition, the distinction between the regime and the people. Many people have left the big cities, have moved to the smaller cities, to the places that are more secure. So Tehran, for example, a city of 14 million population, is almost empty. People are either prefer to stay home, not to go to the street, or they have already left the cities, go to the other small cities or villages in order to be safe. Today is Friday, and Islamic Republic try to bring its pro-regime people, it's Iranian people. If you see the news that coming from Iranian pro-regime propaganda machinery, you will see it's not very crowded. It's actually a small population. People, again, they feel this is not our fight. Because of the most Iranians see it as a war between Israel and the Islamic Republic, not as Iranian. The Islamic Republic completely shut down the internet since 48 hours ago. I am not able to call with my families in Iran, even with the landline, because all of the landline from outside of the Iran is cut down. You are not able, they don't have access to the internet. There is only a small group of the pro-regime that have the access to the free high-speed internet to promote and propagate in favor of the regime, but the ordinary Iranian have not access. And what they tell us, this act, it tells us that the Iranian, they know that the Iranian don't support them. So they try to bring the people to rally around the flag. Since last Friday, they shifted to the more nationalistic slogan. Islamic Republic for the last 46 years was against any element of nationalism. Khamenei, and all of these ideological people said nationalism is ideology of animal. We are Muslim, Islam doesn't have any border. But since last Friday, you see more nationalistic message from Iranian TV and Iranian. They try to bring Iranian behind the flag, but they have not been successful so far. The second question you address about the Iranian elite, the gap and cleavages between Iranian elite. Interestingly to tell you, yesterday the Tasnim news, that affiliated to the IRGC, just published that there are some clergy in Qom, some the elite, they try to bring the clergy, and one of the old Iranian, politician, probably Hassan Rouhani, to ask the cleric in the Qom to address the issue that this fight should be stopped, and we should stop our nuclear program, and we have to find another path. It clearly signed that there are some movement among some of the elite of Iranian elite that they feel the danger, they perceive the threat is real, and they want to do something about it. But as long as Ayatollah Khamenei is alive, as long as the IRGC has a grip on the power, they are very easily can suppress this part of the elite.
It's very interesting you mentioned about Ayatollah Khamenei because, I can say only from what we see in declarations made by some Israeli politicians that some view the killing of the Ayatollah as a potential kind of chessmate scenario. Kind of like the king is down, so we can basically, from this point on, negotiate with whoever comes after. Iran will enter into a chaotic phase, and so on and so on. So the question here is, one, how realistic it is that in a scenario where Israel managed to assassinate the Ayatollah Khamenei, that actually the scenario actually goes this way, that Iran enters, the leadership enters into chaos, which leads into basically concession to agree to the terms by the West. And two, do you feel that such a killing may actually create the impact, which is the contrary impact of the rally around the flag, just because he is a symbol at the end of the day? He is the head of the state from the religious perspective.
This is a very difficult question to answer. When I'm thinking about Iran, what will happen next, I think about the three scenarios. The collapse of the regime, continuation of the attack at killing Khamenei, assassinating, the IRGC commander, and we go, and then if it continue for a long time, when the people are not able, to go and to work, all of these issues gradually will lead to the collapse of the regime. That's the first scenario. The second scenario is a negotiated, transition. After Ayatollah Khamenei have been assassinated, and again, IRGC have been undermined and weakened, then there is a possibility that some of the elite get together, especially the clergy, realizing they are going to lose the regime. They are coming together around one of these old oligarch and say this is time to do that, and maybe they can actually find some support among of the Iranian army or the lower rank of the IRGC. And the third one is Ayatollah Khamenei. The third scenario, Ayatollah Khamenei survive. The pressure over the Israeli government and Israeli society led to the slowdown of the conflict, and then this continue. The Islamic Republic continue with the same format, but in a weaker position. For the negotiation, what you need, you have to think about why there is no elite deficit of the elite in Iran. No, why nobody actually defect the regime? And part of it is because of the massive repression and surveillance of the security forces and the personality of Ayatollah Khamenei as a very spiteful person who are coming and taking the revenge. Until these two are intact, Ayatollah Khamenei is alive, the IRGC in the power, this negotiation is almost unlikely. But if these two are out of the picture, if Ayatollah is out of the picture, if IRGC higher echelon, because when we talk about the IRGC, we are talking about 180,000 people. We are not talking about everybody. We are talking about top echelon people. If that top echelon people have been undermined, eliminated, or weak, then the possibility is there. Because they don't want also to die, or they don't want to completely lose the power. At one time, if they see that the threat is real, they are coming to the negotiation and they will accept with the, somebody is not as Ayatollah Khamenei.
So it seems there is this balance, or I would say this scenario diversity between what we call a regime change to a change regime. Basically, either we're going to see a collapse and someone else come take over, or a status quo, but with a different type of mentality of the regime, which is a different setup. And these are the kind of where I put those three scenarios in. But that takes me to the question of, so in that case, the whole purpose of the nuclear option was regime survival. And it seems that it's kind of like it's kind of a counter-effective in a sense. It created the actual counter result, which is from a regime survival to a regime threatened, to the point of almost extinction, which is what we call a regime change versus a change regime. But we're talking about those kind of two options. Are they changing their mind, the leadership that is responsible for making the decision on the nuclear? Do they see now what is going on and they're basically saying, you know what, we need to change course? Do you think there are kind of fractions where they say, you know what, we don't need the nuclear, it brings much more trouble, the Israelis, the Americans are absolutely 100% against it, they're going to go against it, so maybe in 6 months this will take over again, this does not yield the results we want? Do you see them kind of making that kind of a change, or do you see the mindset maintaining the same as before, only even harder? Like, we have to go into the nuclear option, that will be the only defense. So what is the kind of lesson learned from this situation here for them?
Go back to your assumption. If you think that Islamic Republic wants the nuclear weapons only for regime survival, that's, this is a very rational thinking that some country like North Korea has it, so they are safe. We have to remember this going toward nuclear program has some, as you said, rational calculus behind it, but there are some ideological calculus behind it that too. It's part of it for some people is a national pride, for some people is, guaranteeing the regime for ideological purposes. This is not only, because if you want to save the regime, you can go toward Saudi Arabia, for example, or the UAE. It's much easier to open up. It's much easier to, undermine your ideological messages. It actually will help the Iranian people to be more satisfied, and let's go to the street. It makes to normalize the relationship between the United States and Iran. But if it's not only the calculus for the regime survival, in my humble opinion. I think there are some component of ideological thinking behind that. It is not only the ideological, it's not only the rational, it is both. Right now, Ayatollah Khamenei is hiding, so we don't know what he's really thinking. The IRGC are trying to fight. But the discussion of if the really nuclear program is good investment on the regime's survival. For the normal regime, for the normal nation state, it is a bad survival, it's a bad strategy. But the Islamic Republic does not want to be a normal regime. This is my point. This is a very revolutionary countries and the regime, and it's stuck in the ideological web he created in the last 6 years. Like, a spider, you create a web, and then you will stuck inside of it. For the regime, the survival is much easier if they normalize the relationship with the United States, or even don't recognize Israel as a state, but stop all of this slogan that we are going to whip up Israel out of the map. But they are not going to do it. They have not done it, and they are not going to do it. Islamic Republic is an autocratic regime based on the support of 10% of the population who are ideological. If it loses the enmity to the United States or the enmity toward Israel, they don't have anything to offer to these people. And other people are not ideological or are against of the Islamic Republic ideology. They are not supporting the Ayatollah. So Ayatollah has stuck with this 10% of the ideological people, the people who have indoctrinated by the regime, and they are asking what happened to your slogan, what happened to the anti-Americanism, what happened. So if they survive this crisis and they are coming back, I think that will be a discussion among of the elite that maybe nuclear program is not, and we have to think about other way to survive and other way to guarantee that they are not going to attack us, maybe to moderate a little bit, maybe to invest on ballistic missiles or more less controversial weapons. I think it's a discussion for maybe next month, 2 months after this conflict is a little bit over.
So the question here is, where do you see them going into the negotiation room? Because at the end of the day, it's pretty simple solution for this. From what what the Israel and the United States are asking, it's the essentially no enrichment of uranium in Iranian grounds. There have been some discussion about transferring the uranium, 60% enriched uranium, outside of Iran into a third country, i.e. even Russia, where it was even discussed or something like that. Israel also added aspects related to the drones and the missiles, but I think that's something that probably is not the key here. So when you see that, the question here is, when they come into the negotiation room, what's stopping them from making a deal right now, considering the pressure they're under? Is it really the fear that it will lead to a complete collapse, or is it the fear that if they are agreeing to that, it's not only the prestige, but maybe other countries will be awakened and taking that as an advantage and see Iran is weak? So what is the fear that is stopping them from taking that decision?
Today, Foreign Minister Araghchi actually talked about that, sent a tweet that we are ready to talk about the nuclear issues and regional issues, but the ballistic missile is out of the question. For the Israel, actually, is not only the nuclear program that it creates in the long term is an existential threat. The missile program is very important, as we can see it right now. Iran is very easily able to target the civilian. For the Islamic Republic, I think they prefer that Israel destroy the Fordow, not themselves, to dismantle it. After 6 years, after spending about $1 trillion investment on that, if they are coming and agreeing to dismantle this program, it will be a huge, blow to their legitimacy. If there are some Iranians supporting this regime, sometimes maybe because of this prestige that we are going to be a nuclear country. And if you are coming and agreeing to this humiliation, to accept, okay, I'm going to dismantle it completely, I think that's an idea that scared the Islamic Republic. That will undermine the small legitimacy of the regime among of its social consequences. So for them, if Israel or American do that, is much better. They can blame every shortcoming to the Israel and the United States in the long term. The issue is what will happen later on. If right now, one of the consequences of this conflict, when I'm thinking about it, is how Iran military and armed force was weak. In 1 week, they lost 13 high military commander. During Iran-Iraq war, we had 8. And some of them actually have been killed by the Iranian air defense, by mistake. But in 1 week, 30 military high-rank military commanders have been killed. In 1 week, more than 1,400 military targeted have been targeted. And the Islamic Republic, before of this conflict, seems very strong, but right now is a very weak military. So it will encourage other countries like Azerbaijan, for example, to do that. So they have to think also about that regional conflict that they are fighting. They are thinking about this will, every war, that the conflict of war, if you defeated in a war or if you sign a humiliated treaty, the result will be either a military coup d'etat, because the military, some part of the military will come to this conclusion that that was humiliation and we have to take over, or they will be led to the revolution. This is in the literature of political science. So that's again the question for the Ayatollah Khamenei, to go to this dehumiliation negotiation and accept this humiliation cause, or prefer the Israel and the United States targeted Fordow, and then the conflict is over and he's coming and said, these enemies of the Islamic Republic of an Iranian nation destroyed everything, and we are going to work from the beginning to repair everything. For that scenario, I think he will be come, at least for his supporter, as a hero, somebody who survived the United States and Israeli conflict, somebody who didn't accept a humiliation deal.
So
he preferred that.
It's very interesting because essentially what you're saying, they're playing to their core basis at this point. And at this point, it's easier for them, for Israel / the United States, to destroy the nuclear facilities than it is for them to negotiate and stop the war. That is basically the statement here, which is quite remarkable. So it's an internal political game which explains the rationale behind their actions and decisions. Now, if the United States do join the attack, but very specifically, i.e., Fordow, because it seems that is where the hard rock of everything, literally the rock of everything, is going to be kind of going to. How likely it is that Iran will respond to such a case, that basically the United States take part in that attack, destroys the facility, but that's pretty much it. It's a very minimal action from the United States, not a large-scale one that is more of a regime threatening. Will the Iranian respond to that, i.e. attacking U.S. bases in the Middle East? Will they even go to the extreme of mining the Hormuz Straits? Like, how do you see the Iranian reaction to a U.S. action in this conflict?
I really don't think they are going to react very badly. Just remember 2020, President Trump assassinated Qasem Soleimani. I remember at that time, everybody was freaking that Iran is going to crazy. They are going to attack America. And what they did, they attacked only one American military base in Iraq. Even before that, they informed American and Iraqi that we are going to do that. And they attacked only the ground, not really the individual. This right now, the situation is much more dear than the 2020. So if the United States attack only Fordow and destroy Fordow, I think the Islamic Republic maybe fire a few missiles on one of these empty military bases, informing the American, but it's not going to go in a crazy mode and start to attack all of the American embassy or American military bases. They are not in that situation. 2020, they thought, remember 2020, Iran, it's only 2 years after Trump withdrew from the deal. Iran economy is doing much better. Iran has much more competent state bureaucracy at that time. There are, 5 years later, every indication in terms of Iranian security, Iranian economy, Iranian politics, Iranian society are much worse compared to the 2020. And you are fighting with Israel at the same time. And you show to the United States that the whole military is like a bodybuilder on asteroid. Maybe from the outside you look very handsome, but you don't have any strength. That was a lesson in the last week for every country in the region, that they are not as strong as we thought they are. So in your short answer, they are not going to do anything.
Very interesting. So in that case, and this is a question here that I got in the chat, do you lean towards a scenario of basically, I mean, you responded to this question, which is, do we see Iran's kind of like leaning towards spilling over this into a regional war? Because at the end of the day, Iran does have the potential to escalate this in the proximity. So they may be limited when it comes to the skies, i.e., ballistic missiles, but no air force. But they do have their branches, which were also weakened, but they do have some possibility to kind of escalate. And where I'm getting to is, how do you see them kind of using a proxy such as the Houthis to attack Saudi Arabia, kind of spilling this over, kind of making this like, if my house is on fire, everyone's house is on fire. How likely do you see this kind of a rationale burning in the leadership mind and saying this is a good decision to make?
They have actually one paradox. If they want to do that, if they want to, put the region in the fire, they know that the result will be completely collapse of the Islamic Republic. If I order the Houthi, first, the Houthi does not have too much power right now. They don't have because of all of this pressure in the last few years, their stockpile of the missile program is limited, not very really active, not really precise. But Iranian have some missile that can easily attack United Arab Emirates or the Bahraini, for example, in the Persian Gulf. They are threatening the region, and they try to convince them to put the pressure on Israel and the United States to stop the conflict. And they are saying, if you don't do that, if the conflict gets started, we are going to attack you. But at the same time, they know if they escalate the situation, if they attack the Arab countries in the region, their consequences will be completely a consensus among all of these countries that let's finish the story. We cannot always live under the fear. Once for all, let's finish the story. Iran is not as strong as we thought. Right now, the Israeli Americans are attacking. We will join the conflict. I think because of that paradox that the Islamic Republic is feeling, they try not to do that. They try not to escalate the situation. Any escalation by the Islamic Republic will result to that country join Israel and American attacking the Iran. I think this is more of the threatening, not the real policy they are following. They are talking about we can close the Strait of Hormuz. But you have seen in the last 6 years, they are always threatening, even right now. Just to give you another example. Always they talk, if Israel attack Iran, we are going to withdraw from NPT. 1 week after, Iran have been hit more than 1,200. Many military commanders have been killed. They are not doing it because they know this kind of the policy that they are always talking about is counterproductive. It brings more countries to the conflict. So I think they will try to only pressure Israel and American to stop it in hope that this situation will resolve. At the end of the story, if they perceive this is the end of the story, if they perceive, okay, we are going to fall, we are going to collapse in 1 week, then you're right. Then they're going to attack. But I don't think the Islamic Republic right now, they see it as a 100% chance for the regime to collapse. They think it is a temporary operation. It's going to be over after the Fordow have been attacked, and we are going to be safe.
From your perspective, when we going to be at the end of this, being the result one in which Iran does not hold the nuclear capacity, i.e., the production and the enriched uranium which they already produce. Maybe yes, maybe no, and the missile. I'll leave that for speculation. But in the end of this, when we reach to this, and Iran reaches to that point where it's basically being under confrontation with Israel, possibly with the United States, air defenses are weakened. The regime looking into it basically will be in a situation that is going to do what? Are they going to concentrate inside to strengthen the regime by increasing oppression, by increasing their authority over the people? Will they be taking steps to recalibrate their strength in other means, i.e., investment in other capabilities? What's going to be the next steps for the regime in such a situation?
I think we are getting close to the Syrian situation around 2020. At that time when the Syria completely lost air supremacy to Israel. Israel, every time they wanted, they come, they destroy anything that they want, they go back. They know they cannot answer Israel anymore, and they prefer not to do that. Instead, they are going to put the focus on political repression, try to repress people, and that's to be honest, one of the nightmares is the increased political repression in Iran after this situation. They try to purge the elite, they try to unify the system, and they try to undermine the Israel and American through other issues, like, for example, narcotic smuggling of the weapon to the other countries, activating the terrorist, cell they have, but they are not going to respond to the Israel directly anymore. Iran will be very similar to the Syria at that time that you are not able to answer, and you are not going to do. They will have the complete supremacy over your airspace, but you just focus to kill your people, you suppress people, purge, and try to stay in the power as much as you can.
So what we're going to be potentially seeing after this is an Iran in a very fragile position, self-concentrated on oppression, which I always say there's a pendulum effect. The more oppressive you are, the more opposition to you, and the more aggressive they become, and the more determined they become. So it has a counter effect as well. So in this kind of a situation, this is a massive regional implications for the Middle East. My question here is, do you see a situation that Iran basically, and I'm saying here a change regime, not a regime change, but a change regime, the current regime, but with a change mindset, actually say, you know what, let's change course, let's become a friend of the West, so to speak. Do you see a situation that they become a dovish kind of friend of the West, opening up for business, abandoning the weaponization, abandoning the investment in groups that are proxies, and so on and so on?
Yes, there is a possibility. As we talk, there are some political elite in Iran who really think that nuclear weapons, missile program, even the axis of resistance Shia militia is counterproductive, and we can rule these countries in a different format, like MBZ and MBS in the region. The problem right now, and somebody like Hassan Rouhani or I'm sure Javad Zarif, I want to make it clear, none of them are really my favorite politician, but we are talking about with an electrical hat on the hat. These are the people who the gap and the conflict between these people and the Ayatollah and IRGC was exactly because of these issues. They wanted to have a different path. Rouhani wanted to normalize the relationship with the United States, but the power in Iran is concentrated in the hands of Ayatollah, his office, and the IRGC. Imagine you want to negotiate. With whom we are going to negotiate? There is a President Pezeshkian who doesn't have any power. Yeah, he's symbolically the head of a state. But you're going to negotiate with the IRGC and negotiating with Ayatollah Khamenei if he's out of the picture with his with his son. So to reach that conclusion, to bring this political elite who wants to have a better relationship, have a different course, you have to make sure that the core of the power, the ideological core of the power, is out of the picture, or they are very weakened. Unless then, until then, this is a wishful thinking. It's a nice thinking. I think is in negotiated transition is path we have to try to recognize Israel as a state without even opening the relationship, normalization the relationship with the United States, decreasing of the political repression. We shouldn't forget that the human rights should be part of this negotiation. But this negotiation only started when Ayatollah is out of the picture and the IRGC top echelon have been eliminated. At that time, yes, I'm sure there are a lot of clergy right now are shaking in fear that what will happen in the last. And as soon as they realize there is a path to save themselves, they are going to do that.
One of the questions asked a lot is about the issue of Fordow, these rock mountains, the nuclear facility, etc. Now, you already said something that was fascinating, just to go back to it, which is the regime itself would prefer Israel and the United States to blow it up than them having to do it through negotiations. That says a lot, and that's because of the political situation with their contingency, which is the hardcore 10% that are the supporters. It's easier to sell it as we were forced to versus we collaborated with it. And it's for regime survival, it's better in this sense. Do you see a situation where the Iranian basically are looking at Fordow and kind of contradicting what you're saying, but I just want to challenge that, and actually agreeing to kind of let go and say, okay, let's have negotiations. We will take care of this. You can take over Fordow. You can destroy the facility. Do you see a situation that this regime will actually agree to that?
Even if the regime really agree with that, they prefer that other countries do it. Why should I? There is a two. In 19th century, Iran fight with Russia twice, and in both conflict, they lost a lot of territories, and they signed the humiliation, treaties that still we are referring to that, called Turkmenchai, for example, and the Treaty of Gulistan. One of the fear of Ayatollah Khamenei is coming and signing the same thing. And if you accept that I'm going to do that, you are signing this, that you spend $1 trillion at least of Iranian money, equal about 25 years of the Iranian state budget. For 46 years, you put the pressure on Iran economy. Iran went to the sanction. A lot of people have been killed. And you are coming and said, I'm sorry, I have surrendered and I'm signing that. And you have other option to do nothing. And then Israel and American are coming and destroy it. Even if America didn't join Israel, there are other possibilities to, send the assault team, to attack it with a smaller nation, and then later on send the assault team and make it completely unusable. It's much more difficult to do it, but there is also possibilities. And for you, it's very better to come out of this conflict as somebody who didn't surround. Still Ayatollah Khamenei messages, if the last message he sent, that we are resisting. For Khamenei, it's much better to be a resistant people, somebody who resists against this imperialistic attack, to somebody who signed a very humiliated treaty. I really think, I read in some news that the Iranians are negotiating to do themselves, to dismantle the Fordow by themselves, but I really don't think they are going to do that. That will be the only legacy Ayatollah Khamenei has. The only legacy for 13/7 is he presents himself as an anti-American and anti-Israeli, political figure, as the head of the axis of resistance. And then you are coming and accepting that, it means he preferred to die to sign that. At least he will survive, his name will survive as a hero for his followers.
So going back to Khamenei, one of the issues here, you're talking about the legacy. It's interesting because we don't talk about Israel and Netanyahu in this webinar, but I can promise you that's also a question there as well with the legacy of Netanyahu. Definitely, this is the legacy in his own mind. Definitely, this is the legacy. So Khamenei is not young. And in fact, one of the things that people were discussing in the last few years was the succession. Who's going to be the succession of Khamenei? Do you see a situation like we have now, this current war, leading to his basically kind of giving the route out in an honorable way, saying, hey, you know what? This is a way to change the regime, so to speak, making it a regime change by having someone else taking over from you. The institutional aspects of the Ayatollah and the of the clerics regime will maintain itself, but we'll bring someone else. It's time to retire versus having a retirement by death. Do you see a situation where this is going to be one of the outcomes of this conflict?
If do you mean that Ayatollah Khamenei come and said, okay, my time is up, I'm leaving, somebody else having be the leader? You have to remember, according to the constitution, there is an assembly of experts consisted of 88 high-rank clergy. So when the leader is dead, they are responsible to come and pick a new leader. And when the leader is alive, the assembly of experts is responsible to supervise the leader. That's a joke, but you have to remember, Ayatollah Khamenei has personalized power in the last few years. He shakes the regime. He marginalized a lot of people, a lot of experts from the state bureaucracy, from the IRGC, from the even dissident clerics. And he personalized all of the pillars of the regime, in my opinion, IRGC, state bureaucracy, and the clerical establishment. He controlled assembly of experts. The last election of assembly expert 2 years ago, he brought everybody who are loyal to himself as a member of assembly of experts. Even Rouhani, the president, was not allowed to run for this assembly of experts. So he's, in my humble opinion, he is not coming to retire. He is not coming to a step down. His personality, his last 70 years, I don't see any strength or any indication that he's coming and said, I am wrong, I'm sorry, I stepped down, somebody else. He will, if he's out of the picture, then this assembly of experts will shape, 88 clergy will come and will decide. Based on the members right now, the member of assembly of experts, I think the result will be somebody very close to Ayatollah Khamenei, somebody from the hard line, unless the pressure from the Israel and the American is so high that will send a message. If somebody come with the same characteristic, we are going to destroy, we are going to assassinate him, we are going to destroy assembly of experts. At that time, the pressure over that assembly of experts may be to result to something else. But under the normal situation, the result of the assembly of experts election of the next supreme leader will be somebody like himself, probably his son, or somebody from that ideological trend. You have to remember, they only respond to the pressure. Under the pressure, their calculus will change to under the normal situation. Under the normal situation, they will be still continue to be ideologic with the same mentalities. Even if right now they destroyed Fordow and missile program, as soon as the conflict is over, they're going back. Because these policies is not based on the nation-state interest. It's rooted in the ideological DNA of the Islamic Republic. If somebody with the same ideological trend of Ayatollah Khamenei came to the power as a leader, we will see the same problem next 10 years, next 20 years.
Very interesting. So it's the fact that even if you manage to destroy the program, the political leadership as it is today is not going to back down from it. It's going to double down on the program itself.
Exactly. If Khamenei is alive or somebody like Khamenei came to the power and the IRGC intact, we have the same problem next 10 years.
So that's very interesting because basically the next step will be a continuation and rebuilding, and essentially it's kind of a Germany post World War I entering into World War II. The in between is not going to be better.
Exactly.
Okay, we only have 10 more minutes. I want to go over a few more questions. I'll start from some questions we received. Regional slash global powers. Let me start with the Chinese role. This is a question we have in the chat. Where do you see the Chinese in all of this?
The Chinese are like Russian, they more speak than they act. Their influences over the Israel is limited. The Americans see it as a rival, super rival. So for them, for the Chinese, saving the regime safe is much better than the next regime that they don't know what is coming and maybe is pro-Western, pro-American. But they are not going to actively support the Islamic Republic. They're in terms of the trade with the region, with the UAE, with the Bahrain, with the Saudi, they have much more trade, much more, economic relationship compared to the Iranian that, is very limited. So I think we will see the same reaction with the Russian, more empty word, trying to de-escalate, asking for both sides to do that, but they are not coming to save the Ayatollah.
Another question here is about Pakistan. You mentioned Azerbaijan also. So let me put those two in the same bucket when it comes to this question. What role each one of them, you know what, let me wait with Azerbaijan here for a second. Pakistan, what role, if any, does Pakistan have in this crisis? What do you see them basically able or capable of doing? Because there were some talks about Pakistan as being that third country, already have nuclear weapons, already have a mechanism to sustain it. U.S. influence very strong and so on. I know it sounds a little bit off the grid, but there were talks in some sort of scenario where Pakistan and Israel managed to have some sort of relations and so on and so on and so on. Maybe we'll see Pakistan as that country that the Iranian will actually agree, i.e. a nuclear Muslim state, so they will agree to do that. Do you see Pakistan playing any role in this conflict? And if so, what is the role?
Actually, since last week the conflict started, there are some messages by the pro-regime, the Twitter account or the politician that the Pakistanis said we are coming in helping the Iranian. And there are some Pakistani politician. I remember they actually tweeted very anti-Israeli, pro-Islamic Republic message that we support the Islamic Republic. But the Iran-Pakistan relationship, even the Islamic Republic Pakistan relationship, have been always a very strange relationship in 46 years, until now. They were more close to the Saudi Arabia and the Salafi Wahhabi ideology. With all of that money goes to that. They are concerned about the immigration of the people because of the war to the Pakistan. But I really don't think, except empty word, Pakistan is going to do anything. Ayatollah Hashemi Rafsanjani once said that Pakistan is a Muslim country with the nuclear bomb, who support all of the Islamic countries, but they are very empty word. Pakistan Pakistan is my nightmare, to be honest. One of the countries that I'm very scared of it is Pakistan, because if you think about the society, is very, very pro-Islamic, very Islamic societies, but at least the nuclear power is the hand of the military, that they are more rational, pro-Western, and less Islamist. But I don't think the Pakistan is coming to save, because at that time you have also the India who is coming to support the Israel. None of these countries wants to extend the conflict. So all of this empty word that some of the politicians are saying is for social media like. It doesn't have any policy implication.
You mentioned Azerbaijan, very interesting. I have to admit, for many years there was a discussion about Azerbaijan being some sort of a base. Refueling, reammunition, the fact that this country has very good ties with Israel, security ties with Israel, as a country that could be logistically supporting Israel in this operation. What is the fear that the Iranian regime has from the Azerbaijani? Is that a concern? Is there a concern that the Azerbaijani will take advantage of this situation?
If you think about Azerbaijani countries as a separate entities without helping by the Turkey or by the Israeli, I really don't think the Iranian take it seriously. For many reasons, the Azerbaijan of Iran, in spite of their small pro-Turkish, separatist movement. Most of the Azerbaijani are not separatists. There are an intermarriage for centuries among of the Persian, Kurd, Azeri, and they are very You have to remember, Ayatollah Khamenei is Azeri by descent. There are Pezeshkian president is Azeri. So this kind of the separatist threat that Azerbaijan is trying to push, that if something happened, we are coming and we are taking the north west of Iran, is empty word. At that time, I'm sure if the Iranian will rally around the flag and will fight with Azerbaijan. Azerbaijan knows that. The concern for the Iran is conflict with Azerbaijan means a conflict with Turkey at the same time, with the support of Israel. So they don't want to have that conflict. They try to manage it. They are talking that Azerbaijan have helped Israel right now, but they promise to maybe in the future they are going to take care of it. They are going to respond. Even they are not responding right now. So there is a among of the some Israeli scholar, unfortunately, and politician, there is a wishful thinking that separatist Turkish are very strong in Iran and they are going, to come and to fight with the regime, and they forget the regime, is consisted of many Azeri. I have no concern about the Turkish separatists. Kurdish separatists are very small, but yes, there are some group that they are against of integrity of the Iran. They have been trying to separate, but for the Turkish separatists, I have no concern. I have no worry about that.
So we're entering the last final minutes of this webinar. I want to ask, well, there's a lot of questions, to be honest, but let me go to the traditional question, how we finish our webinars, which is, I'm going to give you 3 kind of boxes. If you can fill in the boxes. One box is what we call a worst case scenario. Let's keep it as the Iranian worst case scenarios. For the Iranian leadership, what would be the worst case scenario? What would be the best case scenario for the Iranian leadership? And what would be a black swan, a surprising kind of an outcome, a low possibility, high impact kind of a scenario for the Iranian regime or for the situation? So worst case, best case, black swan, but from the perspective of the Iranian regime.
From the Iranian regime, worst case scenario is collapse. They lose the regime and the regime completely changed to something else. For example, the Prince Pahlavi came back and, that's, for the Islamic Republic, the return of the Pahlavi is the worst case scenario. Yeah. The best case scenario is after Fordow is, they stop. They said, we have done our job. Missile program is out of the picture, or nuclear program is out of the picture. We are not going to continue the operation. The regime goes back to the purge, to the repression, and to rebuild itself, to try to survive. The Swan will be maybe the coup d'etat that I really don't think it possible or very, very likely, but some part of the military decide to do something among of the Artesh or among of the lower rank of IRGC. Again, it's very, very unlikely, but that's part of the black swan, that the military came and kill Khamenei or take over the regime. That will be the black swan in my humble opinion.
And to emphasize, we're talking the military, not the IRGC, correct?
Yes, you're talking about the military and Artesh, I mean.
Very interesting indeed. All right, we reached the 1 hour. This can go on for on and on and on. But it's such a fascinating topic and developing topic, and there's a lot of questions. We receive a lot of questions. Unfortunately, we cannot cover all of them. So Saeid, thank you so much for joining us today, for clarity, for the answers, and for the ability to provide us some analysis and insight. I really want to thank you for this.
Thank you very much for having me. If there is any question, please send me the email. I will be happy to answer that as much as I can.
For sure. And thank you everyone who joined this. I just want to remind everyone, this is one of our webinar series we do once or twice a week. Obviously, with the situation that is ongoing, this webinar was not planned. It was on a very short notice, as Saeid happily applied to our schedule. So thank you again for that. And thank you, everyone. Goodbye.